Hi, welcome to Blacticulate, a podcast series featuring UK young black professionals, where we find out how they do what they do, so you can too. Or not. After all, it is your life. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Blacticulate, a podcast series featuring UK young black professionals, where we find out how they do what they do, so you can too. Now, this is a rebroadcast of a previous episode with a phenomenal guy. His name is Ayo Akinwolere, whose claim to fame, I guess, would be he was the first ever Black Blue Peter presenter. And he teaches us how he got into the profession, also about what the industry at large can really do to help people of colour thrive and excel. And it was just a great conversation, really. So if you or you know someone who's looking to get into the profession, then I highly recommend listening to this podcast. It was a nourishing and really insightful conversation about the entire TV landscape. So, as always, if you can share this, if you can review it on iTunes, if you can comment, or even just follow us because it really helps, then we can serve you better, we hope. So without further ado, I bring to you Ayo Akinwolere. Thanks for listening. Bye.
What up?
All right.
Andy, I know you personally, you're a very dear friend, but for those who don't know you, do you want to describe yourself?
Yeah. My name is Ayo Akinwolere. Most people know me as Ayo Akinwolere. I was born in Nigeria. Lived there till I was 8. Then we moved to the lovely sunny city of Birmingham.
Sunny city.
Yeah, exactly. Now my parents live in America now, so they jump ship really.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was the first ever black male Blue Peter presenter.
Woo!
In the UK, and it was an incredible 5 years of my life. I travelled around the world, over 118 different cities, met some very impressively cool people, and yeah, man, like life has been good along the journey. I think after that journey, things started becoming a bit harder because you start. In many senses, you are now part of the rat race of TV presenters, and there are quite a lot of them. And
oh, okay. So what, like being a Blue Peter presenter, it's you only have a certain shelf life.
Yeah, well, you do and you don't. I could have stayed for 10 years. On a personal level, I just thought I'd had enough. 5 years is a good time in any job, let alone a TV job. And I kind of felt that if I didn't leave, I wouldn't be progressing as a TV presenter or as a broadcaster, which is what I want to be. It's almost as if it gave me the schooling. It's like any job, you realise you get to a certain point, you're like, well, I think I need a bit more of a challenge. I want to maybe try new things, maybe work for a different channel, maybe work on a different kind of program that isn't so, I guess, necessarily inspiring.
Right, okay.
And, Blue Peter comes with its baggage. There's that kind of idea that you're a role model, which I did.
But you are.
but that's the thing. Like, you don't think about it till you start becoming more comfortable with the job. Okay. I think there's this idea that I always had with Blue Peter that it always felt a bit worthy, and as much as it did, I didn't want that worthiness to come across as something that was a bit disingenuous. So what I wanted to do in Blue Peter was to try and do things that I wasn't necessarily good at, because. No lie, I rarely watched that show as a kid.
Okay,
I didn't. I wasn't that kid. I was Biker Grove, Grange Hill.
I'm gonna have to find out how the hell you got into Blue
Peter. But that's the thing. Well,
it's
it's interesting because I always say this to my friends.
Right.
I grew up Nigerian middle class. I came to Britain as a British working class person. So my entire family have gone to university. We're very well educated people, but financially we fall into the working class spectrum in that respect, but with sort of middle class aspirations, because that's where we came from. My granddad went to Cambridge, and this is a typical story of many of my Nigerian friends, come from very highly educated families, but in British society you are working class. So I've got this whole idea that I identify with British working class people. I identify with that struggle in many respects, but when I find myself in an environment that's very middle class, like I go to Whole Foods on the weekend because I've reached that point in my life. So it's okay, man. I get it. But the thing is, it took me a while with Blue Peter because it is a very middle class very BBC show, and it took me a while to find my identity on that show, because you know I was this young lad who'd grown up in Nigeria, grew up in Birmingham, and then all of a sudden I'm in this office just full of white people. I don't, you know, that's I was never used to that. You know, everywhere I've been has been very multicultural. Actually, I tell you what, my very first sort of taste of, I guess, lack of diversity and was a real wake-up call for me in Britain was when I went to university. I went to Sheffield, up north in Yorkshire. And that feeling of being in a club and being the only black guy, it's a strange one. It's a real strange one. And I didn't think, because I grew up in Birmingham, man. Like, Birmingham's so multicultural. Like, sure. And obviously there is still a white, black, Indian divide across the city, but I didn't see it as that. Like, I went to a very inner city multicultural school. We had Indians, we had, you know, white people from Eastern Europe, a lot of Jamaican, that Caribbean, a lot of African, you know, and it was a melting pot, and that's what I knew. Right. And then leaving home, going to university was a real education on Britain, and not necessarily a bad one. It just made me more aware of myself being black. It sounds really strange.
No, fair.
And then I go work for the BBC.
Okay, you see now that's a leap.
Yeah, that's a leap. Yeah, okay.
Leap,
so you want to know that middle bit?
I definitely want to know how the hell you managed to find yourself being a Blue Peter presenter. Because you know, fundamentally, a lot of people will be like, "Oh shit, okay."
Yeah, I hear you. Well, basically, I did film and media studies at university to this taste of my parents who wanted me to do something a bit more solid. You know, I used to lie for like 3 years ago. I want to get into advertising. That's why I'm doing it. Oh, advertising. Yes, that's a solid job. Yeah, right. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Oh, yeah, because I didn't get it. You know, our parents grew up in an environment where you're either a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, solid jobs. And they didn't get creativity. They didn't understand. And I always knew from a young age, from at the age of 14, 15, that I was interested in music, film, whatnot. You know, my mind, I was a bit of a loner, you know, like I had friends, but on the weekends or when I'd go home, make my own little mixtapes, you know, I'd be talking to my little microphone thing. Yeah, like, nice. Yeah. And I remember this, nice. You know, I tried to make my own music when I was young. Like there was a program on PC called EJ.
EJ.
And basically, all
this
it was,
definitely showed your age.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And there was these little. Basically, it was just a library of samples, and basically you put these samples into a sequencer, and then and obviously you had effects just to make it. And I remember I made my first sort of drum and bass thing. I was like, oh, because I was really like, page 14, 15. I was going to like drum and bass gigs, bro. Like I was like, you know, I used to go to this thing called Flashback in Birmingham with my mates, like, and I used to lie to my parents, obviously, that I was staying at someone else's house. So I always knew my brain was not geared into that lifestyle of, I guess, not mundanity, but like those kind of vocational jobs. And then after university, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I moved to Manchester with some of my friends that I made at uni, and I was working at Harvey Nichols department store as a denim specialist, because I like my fashion. Yeah. You'll go into retail when you don't really know what you're doing, and you know, retail also paid my way through uni. I used to work at Gap and stuff, so I'd always been in retail. I was like, that's the first thing I know, so I went to that. And then 6 months into that, I'm like, I need to do something in my life, man. I can't stand here earning, you know, minimum wage, and people are buying stuff from me that are earning ridiculous amounts of money. Right. Some dude just drops a black Amex, like, oh god, I've never reached that point. And it's not that money's my driver, but I was just like, I think I need to be doing something more in my life. So,
and plus the fact that you went to uni, a lot of people who've actually committed to completing uni always feel they must be doing something more than if you didn't necessarily need to go to uni as a job. So if I was to try and explain that a little bit better, I mean, if you're in retail, and I mean that with no disrespect to those who are in the retail profession, because it is a worthy profession in itself, and you can make a lot of money within it, but you don't necessarily have to go to university to do it. Exactly.
And there is that idea that was in my head, you know, in a very Nigerian sense. What have you worked for? You know, like you've gone to university. I never knew what I wanted to do when I went to university. I just wanted to do a subject that I enjoyed. And I always knew I enjoyed film, I enjoyed the media industry. And what was great about my course was that it was more sociology, really, talking about current affairs and moral panics and understanding how the media shapes the way we view our lives, you know. And you only need to look at the election to see how it's been incredibly poignant to the Conservatives winning. This is a whole different debate. Anyway, so I'm working as a denim specialist, and I was just like, look, I can't do this anymore. I need to get something that is part of the industry, I guess, I signed up to. Yeah. And then I got a job working in a regional news program in Leeds, and I was living in Manchester, so I was basically
to and fro.
Getting up every morning, 5:30 in the morning, getting the train for 6, 7:30. getting to work for 8 or 9, leaving. It was like horrendous. And I was on no money at all. And I don't know how I survived. I was living in Manchester. And then what was interesting is through that time, I'd managed to get a bit of a gig down in Birmingham with a guy called Robert Beckford, who was basically a radio DJ. He's a documentary maker now, but he had his own sort of black magazine show on BBC Birmingham. And I remember talking to him in the street. And I was like, "You're Robert Beckford?" He was like, yeah. He's like, "I want to get into, I'd love to get into radio." He was like, "Well, why don't you come on my show and talk music?" I was like, "What?"
Amazing.
And so basically I was working in Leeds every day.
Yeah.
And then on the weekends, I was coming back to Birmingham and playing records and talking. And what was interesting about that time is because I was working in a newsroom, I just like email like Universal Studios, wherever, and go, "Look, I'm doing the show on the BBC, keywords. I need some new music to talk about next week." I was just being sent loads and loads and loads of music like all the time. Like it was my thing. I really loved it. And so I think that kind of began my sort of thought into broadcasting, and I didn't really think about it much, really. It was just a bit of a pipe dream. There's something about it, and I think it's inherently Nigerian about me, where you're like, it's not a real job though, is it? Like, it's not a real job, is it? Like, TV presenting, it's not a real job though, is it? And I still convince myself today it's not a real job. Because you've been drummed into you from day one that you're not supposed to be doing these kind of things.
You don't really have too much fun.
Yeah, exactly. You're not supposed to have fun. You're supposed to work hard, come back, complain how hard you've worked, and complain how you kids are eating all the food in the house and you haven't got any money. That's how it's supposed to be,
I like that. Yeah.
And for me, I was
it was just
it was my little fun thing. And then the real job was going to the newsroom and trying to be a news assistant. And I knew in my heart of hearts I didn't want to be there. Right. So 6 to 8 months into that, I've got a 6-month period whether or not it clicks for me or not. That's how I work usually, mentally. 6 to 8 months into that, I was just like, I can't be here. It's like, not that I don't respect regional news. The stories just weren't talking to me. I'm a news assistant, and the role would have carried on to me being like a news journalist in the local area in Leeds and Sheffield, whatever. And I didn't have any connection to that region at all because I'm from Birmingham. Yeah. So
and you're the only black in the village.
No, mate, you're not wrong. I still was in that respect. So there was another Asian girl in the office, and I think you then start looking at that point. And seeing, there aren't many ethnic minorities in the industry in many respects. And not just that, I always ask myself why. And do a lot of ethnic minorities feel they're represented enough and that is a viable solution and a viable place for them to work? If there aren't any role models that you see on day to day, do you think that's where you want to work? And secondly, if I'm talking from a Nigerian's perspective, and I know a lot of my Indian friends as well, it's like, those kind of jobs aren't pushed to us from our parents. Our parents aren't telling us, you know what, you could be the next newsreader. But we all consume the media, but not one of our parents is telling us, you know what, why don't you're already entertaining? You could be a comedian, You're already good at it, because our families, we're from immigrant families, and their sole impetus was to survive. And that does not equate survival by having a job that they're not quite sure about. The one that really showed, and even I look at my parents now, and they still never fulfilled their full potential because their sole focus was to put bread on the table for the family, and whatever it was to do that, they had to do at that time. It was urgent. Got 5 kids, need to put bread on the table, and only now I'm talking to my parents, and they're like, "Oh, I might go on holiday." There you go. I got a job.
Right.
I basically took the day off work, and there was this sort of diversity scheme in Manchester, and Paul the Sickie, and I was like, "Oh, I can't go up today. I've been sorting this diversity thing," because I knew the BBC were coming into town, so I was like, always been a dream to work for the BBC or Channel 4. They were the 2 channels I had in my head, and they're like, "Do you what are you up to now?" And sort of talking about the news. They went, "Okay, cool." And then they seemed really interested in me. I was like, "Okay, this is interesting." And then I got a call like the day after going.
So hold up. So they were in town. What does that mean?
So there's like a big diversity thing to try and get more ethnic minorities.
Is that still going on?
It does from time to time. Yeah, move on up. Yeah. And it's basically BBC Initiative, Skill Set, Channel 4, whatnot. It's basically a room full of execs and people that hire in the media industry, and they're like literally going, how do we get more black people? How do we get more ethnic minorities into the media? Just come down, and I almost...
That's a good thing.
It is a good thing, but for me, everything's about sustainability. I think it's one thing getting people in the door. There's another thing actually understanding the needs of those people that are coming into the door. You can't assume that they're going to fit in very quickly to a very white middle class environment. There's a set of expectations that come. There's a certain etiquette that
Right,
you know.
yeah.
So my thing is, what's the sustainability? Do you bring people in, great, but if people feel completely disillusioned with the environment they're in, what's the point of being there?
Right.
You know, because you quickly lose love for the job because you're like, well, no one really talks like me, no one really gets me, and it's not really sometimes not an integrating experience. I'm very lucky, like my family have travelled a lot. And you know, my view isn't solely a black view. My view has always been a world view. That's the way I've always lived my life. You know, like black, white, Cuban, or Asian. I'll shake your hand. We'll have fun, man. Like you're my friend. You know, I know it sounds overly liberal, but that's just the way my family are. You know, like I grew up. My mum loves her opera. My dad loves cheesy French music. My parents love ABBA music. Do you know what I mean? As much as Fela Kuti. So that's the environment I grew up in. Sound of Music was being played in my house from day one, bro. Like so that's how I was brought up. So I've never been brought up thinking, oh yeah, you're black. Yeah, of course, definitely, because I've always been brought up to understand that actually, unfortunately, in the world, the colour of your skin does affect certain opportunities that come your way. That's just I'm not even going to lie about
And
that.
nothing more so than actually in the
entertainment industry.
The media industry.
And I had never really thought about sort of getting into TV. So I came in off the back of that meeting with the BBC. I came in to do a job for 6 weeks working behind the scenes as a runner. So if you guys don't know what a runner is, it's the most junior position in TV. You're the T-boy basically.
Okay. And
you're running errands. But in the meantime, they were training me up on cameras and stuff. And I was really enjoying the experience. What I hadn't told them was that previously, this going back and forth here, but previously, me and a friend of mine had made a few documentaries around Manchester when I was living there. I fitted a lot into Manchester, actually. Nice. I didn't think about it. Yeah. And we were really focused. It's actually one of my best mates from university as well, my mate Baz. We made a documentary on British hip hop. And what it was, it was literally on the rise of Dizzy Rascal and Tiny was coming up, and then obviously I've always been a big fan of Roots Maneuver, and we just travelled around Manchester with our little handheld camera going, what do you think of British hip hop? Who do you like? Blah blah, and I did a little summary at the end of it. It was so weird. And then like,
is it still around? Does it exist?
Do you know what? I'm trying to find it. I don't know where we put it. But you know what's weird? Off the back of that, and I didn't realise, my mate sent that tape to Channel 4. And it was when T4 really were looking for presenters. And this is actually my real first bout of presenters. They were looking for presenters. And I got in, to the final auditions. We did like a big thing. And I didn't get the job in the end. And I remember asking them, going, why didn't I get it? They were like, you just didn't want it enough. I was like, what? They were like, we definitely know that you've got talent, man. But like, you didn't feel like you wanted it enough. I was just like, I'm not a jumping bunny. But that's the thing. And from then, that point onwards, I was like, I don't think it's for me. Like, I'm not here to jump around for people. I'm just here to, and the irony of now working for Blue Peters, all different thing. And then, fast forward, obviously, back to where we were talking about being a runner in the BBC. I was there for 6 weeks, and I had an amazing experience. I was traveling around the country, filming with young people. And the show was it was basically there to inspire young people. It's called Level Up, on a very digital kind of interactive level. All the kids will upload their clips online, and the show was basically based in the studio. And we had a group of panelists who were on webcams in their homes, and it was a really interesting take on sort of modern talk show or modern morning show for kids, and it was brilliant. And I was basically, it's my job to be out with a film team out around the country filming with different kids. So for instance, a kid is decided that they're the best juggler in the UK, so they show us how they juggle, and then we take those clips and bring it back on the show, and we discuss it, and it was really nice. And that
dreams.
Yeah, man, it's a tough industry, mate. Entertainment industry is tough. And that 6 weeks turned into 2 months, and they kept me on. And I realised that, looking back at it now, it was that youthful excitement and that youthful naivety that got me to London. I came to London on a 6-week contract with a backpack, found a flat in it's not like modern London now, trust me, man, this is 10 years ago. I found a flat in Shepherd's Bush, moved in with these people I didn't know, and I just kept looking forward. I never looked back, just kept looking forward. And I didn't for once think I was just going for 6 weeks and that was it. I was just, 6 weeks, we'll just see where this goes.
Yeah.
And 6 weeks has turned into 2 years. And, that 6 weeks turned into 2 months. Met some people. After that 2 months, I was new in the industry. And this is what I talk about, sort of teaching people to integrate and understand what the industry is about. It's all good bringing black people in, but if you don't tell them they need to network, they need to talk to this and this person. Because in my mind, I'm like, well, where am I going to go from here? And I had nowhere to go. End of my contract, or my leavers party. Everyone's like, "You've been really good. What are you going on to next?" I was like, I don't know. Like, I haven't got a job, like type thing. Seriously, in my mind, I was like, and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, I'm working on this program. Oh yeah." I was like, "How do you do that?" Like, they're, "Oh, you need to email this production manager." Oh, now you tell me, right? You know, because they assumed you have the knowledge. Like, they assumed you're coming there with the same knowledge as them because but you're not, because you've been brought in on a diversity scheme. So it's sort of down to the industry to really help you out and say, this is what you need to do to get jobs. But they didn't have that. And that's what I say about these diversity schemes. They're great, but you've got to think of the broader picture. You know, what are you teaching people? You can't just bring them in and expect them to come in with your values.
Okay,
you know,
that's interesting.
So anyway, 2 months was up, leaving party. I was at the BBC bar and was chatting to this lady, and she seemed really interested in me. I was like, "Look, I ain't up for that." No, I'm serious. Well, you know, you're in London, a young man like me, you know, an older woman makes an advance. I'm like, "Look, I've heard at the casting couch, but I'm ready, bro. I'm ready." She was really nice, actually. She was really lovely. Her name was Catherine Patterson, and she changed my life. She was like, "Look, I don't know about you, but we're looking for new presenters on Blue Peter, and I think you'd be really good at it." I was like, "Have you ever thought about presenting?" I was like, "No. What are you on about? Nah." Okay. She was like, "Seriously, I think you'd be really good at it." She was like, "Have you got any footage?" I was like, "Yeah, I've got this thing that I did in Manchester, like that documentary, but yeah, take a look at it." And she was like, "Honestly, if you don't want it, you don't have to, you don't have to audition, but I think you'd be really good at it." She basically pulled me, in my mind, I was like, "Ooh."
You know, that's really interesting, actually, because often the case is, people often say, work on your strengths and find what it is you're good at and what you want to do, and your passion will therefore make you money, kind of thing, right? It's success. But then, funnily enough, it actually might take someone else who's seen it, done it, been there, to spot that within you.
Yeah, massive. Massively. Yeah, but that's the thing, and I think, I'm kind of not used to that in a weird way. Like, I always, if I'm being really analytical and quite deep, I go back to my childhood, and like, Nigerian parents aren't often the most supportive. They're just like, do it. So when someone's like, "I see something," and you're like, no, I've got like a real job to do. So thank you. Like, and you become really humble, and you become like, no, I'm all right, thank you. Now that's not for me, because mommy said you don't do jobs like this. You basically think of earning the crust, and and there was a bit of that in me, massive tussle, and I was just like, really, nah, it's not for me. My heart of hearts, I'm like, Blue Peter, I've never watched it, but like, that'd be sick, bro. And then I got a call like week after, and she was like, showing the tape to the boss. "We'd like to see you if you're up for it." I was like, "What?" Yeah, we're right in the middle of the auditions process, but so they put me through a lot of stuff, and I didn't really know what the plans were. But in my mind, they'd already seen me and thought, "He's him." And like hundreds of people around the country auditioned, and a month later, I got the job, man. Like, amazing. Yeah, and and then
you were fast tracked.
Yeah, pretty much. I look at it now.
Do you find that is really quite telling of the industry, where it's almost who you know?
I mean, to a certain degree, yeah. To a certain degree, I mean, you've got to network, you got to speak to people, but
not doing you the service.
Yeah, no, but actually, sounds weird. Looking back at it now, like me being at that BBC bar was a form of networking. I didn't have to be there. I could have gone, "Oh, guys, I'm going to go home," but that's where all the execs and stuff at the BBC are. You're meeting people, you're chatting to people, and turns out she was an assistant producer on the show and saw something in me, like. But it's that thing, isn't it? It's do you take the blue pill or do you take the red pill? Who knows where that your destiny will end? Do
you feel like, so people listening to this, they have every right to say, well, you just got lucky, kind of thing. Yeah. Someone saw something in you, but I might not be so fortunate as in someone seeing something in me. So how the hell do I become the next Blue Peter presenter? Now, I'm of this mind frame and argument that basically luck doesn't exist. Luck is basically meaning that you are prepared for an opportunity. When you spot that opportunity, you take it. Do you know what I mean? So I guess my question really is, if someone listening to this was saying, well, how do I get into those networks, the BBC networks, or parties and stuff to network? What can they do?
It's really tough, because it's like you're getting the foot in the door, isn't it? Yeah. Like that. But the thing with the BBC is, because it's a big institution, their parties happen within the BBC. Precisely. If you know what I mean. So it's almost like having to come in. But it wasn't until now, now realise the position I'm in with many things, that I realise the importance of going on a scheme like that. I've always been quite militant in that respect. I want to take on the merit of who I am, not because of the colour of my skin and stuff. And it's true, that's what everyone wants. But it's like sometimes you've got to play that game. And I hate to say it, but you have to sort of play that game where you're like, right. But then if I was smarter at that point, I'd be like, what is this doing for me? And I don't want people in in our community especially to ever lose that, because we know there are obstacles along the way. There always have been, and even now there are. We know the state of Britain today. I see it day to day on the streets. Like, I get that, but I don't want us to lose that, because actually what people don't realize is that the other, which I will call white middle class Britain, when they see similarities in you, they're more. It's easier to bring people in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
I'm not saying you have to assimilate. Yeah, it's not you have to assimilate into society, into their society, but we all have things in common.
Yeah, of course.
Do you know what I mean? I feel like my blackness is not something I have to wear. It's something that you can see, and like, he's definitely different. This guy's definitely different to me. But actually, there's something about this guy. He likes to talk to people. He's warm. He's friendly. He's interesting. All those things. He's fascinated. All those things are beyond colour.
Yeah.
And that's the way I live my life, and that's the way And I think sometimes, and because it's very rare sometimes to be in these environments where everyone's like white, middle class, you feel like a fish out of water, and you do. But it's the same as putting a working class person in a very upper middle class environment, regardless of colour. You will always be a fish out of water. Yeah. It's how you swim. It's completely how you swim. We'll always be in difficult situations. Don't get me wrong, I'm not overly optimistic about many things, but I always try and give it a positive slant, because it's like, look, there's still a lot of work to do. Look, I'm one of the few black male TV presenters on television. Let's not talk about black females, which are pretty much none. Yeah. Indian, Asian females, none. Yeah. Asian men, none. Yeah. But we all eat at the curry restaurant on the weekend, don't we? We all go to the Chinese. It's like, at what level do you consume culture, and on what level are you allowing culture to flourish on the public scene? And that's the thing. And I think that's the thing. That's the stuff I really struggle with in the industry, because I'm still going into offices where I see a lot of white faces, which is fine, because everyone deserves a job. It's fine, because they've gone for a job not thinking because they're white they're not gonna get it. Yeah, they've just gone for a job of their dreams. Precisely. But on the streets, I'm meeting young men, young women, black, white, whatever, going, how do I get a job in the media? And I'm like, this is interesting. There's a disconnect here. But do you know that there's this scheme? Do you know that there's that scheme? And the word isn't getting out, because that middle class organization, which it is, it's like, it's a big institution, are so in a microcosm, in a bubble, that they don't actually know how to reach out. So they reach out in the wrong ways to people, and they don't actually connect where they should connect. That Move On Up thing, I don't know how on earth I knew about it. It's because I think I was working at ITV at the time.
Oh, okay.
Well, that was the regional station.
Oh, right, got you.
It was an ITV regional station, and I saw something like on the flyer there. I was like, oh, this is interesting. But why are you putting it there when there's no black people in that office? As one, and it reached me, but I was the only. If I wasn't in that office, that's a wasted pamphlet.
Yeah. No, I see that.
But do you know what I mean? That's a wasted pamphlet, because you're putting it in these environments where there's no black people or Asian people. So the white people are just walking past it going, this is nice, but it means nothing to me. It's for diversities. Next. And so it's a wasted way. Now I think, obviously, they've probably changed their target, and there's a lot more. The thing with BBC now is there's a lot more outreach stuff. But they can still do more, because I think, especially with the outreach stuff, you've still got a lot of very middle class people telling not so middle class people, come, we want you to work for us. We want you to, because there's not enough working class representation, if you know what I mean. And you've already created that division. It's like, you're on stage, they're there, and you're going, we want your stories, but what's the follow through? We want your stories, but how do you encourage that group of young people not to write another story about Gangland Britain or whatever? Because that's all they know. They don't want to do that, but actually you're like, but we want your real stories. And they're like, well, but that's like every other story. So how are you empowering them?
Why are you trying to pigeonhole me?
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly.
And you want me to continuously perpetuate that story and that narrative. It's like a single narrative.
Exactly. But also, then you look at the education level of some young people and you're like, well, that's all they know, and those are the only stories they can tell. So how do we empower them enough to come into this environment and go, do you know what? I want to learn.
Do you have an answer?
I don't know. I don't have the answer, because I know from my point of view, I've always been like, I want to learn without prejudice, without any sort of, I'm always wide-eyed and ready to accept, like, I naturally have the restrictions, and naturally I feel like there are things within the industry that I don't agree with, or I just don't understand, because I just don't come from that background of many of these people. But at the same time, I find it really fascinating. I'm like, whoa, all right, we're going to that country mansion. Cool. Yeah. All right, let's do it. Only black man in the village. Nah, no matter, man. Let's do it. Let's do it. Cool. And, because, I mean, look at the things that I've accomplished. I look at it like through Blue Peter, I've got my skydiving license. Black men never were able to do that. I've got my racing license. The only black man I know who drives cars is Lewis Hamilton. I've got a swimming world record. I don't see no black people swimming. And for me, like, those are those three things that I'm like, while I was on that show, I had the privilege to be able to alleviate those stereotypes and just be like, look, man, I'm just a person, and yes, we know there's a myth that black people can't swim, but why is there a myth that black people can't swim? Because even black people are too scared sometimes to be like, yeah, man, maybe I want to take that on. But you basically live in this kind of perpetuated fear and make the excuses where you're like, nah, man, bone density, bruv, muscle, bruv. Like, you're like, all you're saying is you're scared of doing something new, and that something puts you out of your comfort zone. And for me, it's the message that lies behind that, is that actually, by the way, this is not all black people. This is just a section of black people. This is a section of society, period, not even just black people. There are people in society that will always blame other people for their stuff, whereas actually, there are other people in society that are looking for solutions. And, one of my biggest fears while I was on Blue Peter was that I would not be accepted by the black community, because this is a show, it's very much a white middle class show. The reason I didn't watch this show as a kid was because I was like, none of these people relate to me. And I was really scared. And it was a big fear of mine, because I'm very Nigerian. My first language is Yoruba. I speak my mother tongue. I eat the food. I love black culture, my entire family's black, and I was a bit wary. I was like, do you know what? And I think this is something that comes from, and it's probably something back to what we're talking about, how do ethnic minorities come in, is that I think it's that idea that if you're if you're going into an environment that represents some sort of authority, that you're selling out.
Right.
And I think that that's still an underlining factor within many people in our society, in our cultural group. That
interesting.
Well, not all, and I think it's all based on education. Like, my thing was, I've come from inner city Birmingham. Any of my boys see me, they're like, nah, bro, sold out, man,
so the
sold out.
question is then, you being on Blue Peter, do you feel like you actually brought in a black demo?
Mate, I can't walk down the street without some dude be like, yo, bro, you the guy? Are you? I'm like, yeah, what are you? It's like, oh, mate, I grew up with you, man. Like,
so that's positive.
No, it's incredibly positive, and that's the whole idea.
So you haven't been ostracized for...
No, but that was my biggest fear, that was my biggest fear. Like, I don't know where it comes from, but like, that was my biggest fear, that I would not be accepted in the black community. Because, like, I was just like, this is a really middle of the road show. Yeah. But then you start looking at the power of what you're able to do. This is really important. Like, how else am I going to be in every middle class family's home other than a show like this? It's a direct access point. And it's like, for me, for White Britain, I was like, I'm just Andy, just so you know. Yeah. Colour's irrelevant. And obviously with young people, it's easier to throw that down. They just they don't really see it to that respect. And for the black community, Asian community, they've got some sort of ethnic representation on the stalwart children's program of the world. It's the longest running show in the world in 50 years. But then what I do look at is, in 50 odd years of that show, and in 35, 40 presenters, no, I think it's about 35 or 36 presenters, there've only been 3 ethnic minorities.
Really?
4. Yeah, 4.
Jesus.
That's a lot of presenters who are just white, middle class, middle of the road. And, they've only, those 4 presenters have only really come in over the last, decade and a half. Dan Lewis Jordan, Connie Huck, me, and a guy called Radzi right now. It's only 4 ethnic minorities that have been on Blue Peter since it started 50 odd years ago.
Blue Peter just seemed fantastic.
Mhm.
It was a great learning curve.
Yeah.
But now you're out of it because you didn't want to be pocketed and you wanted to continue your journey.
Yeah, yeah.
How are you finding that?
I've theorized this so many times because I think way too much,
Right,
and
that's good,
and I rationalized it a lot. And I think that there's two things really. One, breaking the mold of a children's TV presenter. It's a challenge in itself. Second,
Did Miley Cyrus do it quite well?
yeah, well, I was gonna go all spandex and like thongs and stuff, but I just thought it just wasn't my thing.
wasn't
You know,
your thing.
I think my ass needs to get a bit bigger, really. Like, you know, can't quite work that stuff. The sledgehammer though, licking, I did think that, but I was just like,
You're like,
tetanus,
damn it, she
bruv.
got you first.
I'm like, tetanus, bruv, man. You don't want to die in tetanus, man. Don't do that. My mum taught me better than that. Yeah. So I think I think that a big jump is, yes, the children's TV presenter turning into an adult presenter. That's a journey on its own. And the second one is, do we feel comfortable enough to have a black, forefront male, female presenter in this country? I'm not talking like light skin. I'm talking black.
Because you're not talking about that Trevor, South African guy who's now going to be...
But that's in America.
Yeah.
That's in America. Like, America's like a very weird paradox, really. Huge problems with race relations. But yet, there's been that there's been a civil rights movement. There's been an empowerment of black people, and the thing in America is, if you can flip the bill, people will take you in, because it's the most capitalist state ever. That's why Jay-Z's running things, because he's got the dough and he's respected on that level.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's how America works. Trev, it's here. I think we still haven't had the discourse about the dark past of Britain. I think this is something we still haven't encountered really, or spoken about in this country. And Akala did something on The Guardian not long ago, and I think it's gone viral, but he's talking about the institutionalization of racism and without even realizing what you're racist. And actually, to a certain degree, there's a bit at the end where I was just like, even black people have fallen into that form of racism. Like, you see a guy driving around in a flash car, drug dealer, bro.
Yeah, it
must be.
Yeah.
Like, we've literally sapped in all that rhetoric ourselves and aren't even believing in our empowerment. So we've actually devalued ourselves. Guy pops into the bank, wad of cash, puts it in. How to get that money?
Yeah.
Drug dealer, bruv. No. What if he just likes his money in cash? Like,
I don't know.
do you know what I mean? Like,
Course,
some people don't like using cards. Like, they just like hard cash. And it's that thing. But that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's why I studied it in university. Like, the media plays a ridiculous part, and that's why I feel like I'm very lucky to work in the media and actually have some sort of profile, because that's, it's about alleviating these stereotypes. And talk about me leaving Blue Peter and my struggles. Yeah. Being a Blue Peter presenter comes with its struggles, because people think you're wholesome, lovely, sweet, blah, blah. And if I'm honest, that's why I left, because I knew it would take me time to shake off that mold.
Right.
You're so used to filtering and not dumbing down, but making the things you say a bit more wholesome, a bit more nice. And I always knew that wasn't me. By the way I speak, like, it's just not the way I talk. I love hard stories, and the ones I really enjoyed were those stories that really got us into communities, countries that, environments and countries that were really struggling. Like, I relate with that, and I love those hard stories. The fluffy stuff, like making stuff, it's part of the job. I didn't really enjoy it.
Right,
I enjoyed the travel, I enjoyed the exploration, because there's always something about me that's always wanted to be that backpacker. I grew up watching, like, people like Michael Palin and Attenborough and all these guys, and I'm like, dude, that's me. It was irrelevant of color. I didn't even think it's because I want to be white. I was just like, I just want to do that. I would love these incredible stories. And I actually thought I could do it better. And leaving Blue Peter, people don't sometimes take you that seriously. They're like, oh, need more experience.
I almost feel, Dave, I mean, like, the fact that you have been a presenter for 5 years, that in itself opens doors.
Yeah,
I would imagine. But
I've been a presenter for about 9 years now.
Oh, shit.
Because
for Blue Peter.
So I left Blue Peter 3 years ago. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
But
people still only recognise you via.
Of course.
Okay.
But that's
still trying to shake it.
But the thing is, it's like the Miley Cyrus, Justin Bieber thing. You will never shake it off. People just need to see you in a different light, and whether or not people feel comfortable seeing you in a different light is completely down to them. And actually, I mean, I'll be honest in this, it's really affected my confidence in many respects, because you're like, I'm going to go to yet another meeting, and they'll be like, yeah, really nice to meet you, but next. Part of that's the industry. Another part of that is, like, do you not see there's an opportunity here to really break the mold and like have someone who's coming at it with a different take, different color, different mold to your program, who, has got the pedigree of doing live television, documentary, entertainment. He's got it under his belt, like in a weird way, slightly overqualified for the job. Invest in people. That's the thing. And I think that there's sometimes this tendency in our industry to be like, well, we tried it once, didn't work. Yeah, but you don't do that with blonde people. You don't do that with blue-eyed people. You don't do that. You just like, they're just not talented enough. Next. Yeah. There's a plethora of different people amongst the community that are either talented or not. Yeah. People will be stupid with their money. People will be, dumb. People, whatever. That's the thing. But I always think, we have different facets of white community. The outgoing, the sarcastic, the intelligent. But you only ever have this one type of black person on television. Has to be funny. We have to be funny. That's the thing. Humor has to be, because that's what black people do. They're funny. They're really funny. And you start thinking about it and you're like, well, I am funny, but I'm more than that. I want to see a black documentary maker who's trekking the streets. I think Reggie Yates is crossing that boundary, crossing that line now. And he's I watched a recent documentary he did in Russia. I tweeted the guy. I was like, that is spot on. Slightly jealous because it's what I'd like to do, but you've got to raise your glass to someone who's actually stepped up. And I think he's had his struggles. I've read about his struggles with Radio 1. I've read about his struggles with the entertainment industry, just not being able to do the programs he wants to do. And now he's kind of found a bit of an output in BBC Three. I think that should be a BBC One documentary. Yeah, I definitely think that should be a BBC One documentary, not BBC Three documentary.
So here's a question though. I mean, do you guys, Ray G, I mean, forgive me, I don't really know many black TV presenters.
Here we go. It says a lot though, doesn't it?
It does. But do you need permission?
What do you mean?
As in, do you need permission from these middle class institutions like BBC, and ITV and whatnot? Because nowadays, I mean, predominantly, if I was to look at someone like Jamal Edwards, SBTV, he started, we all know his story. Yeah. And YouTube and having a global reach now on the internet where it's a lower barrier, can you not be doing this and earning without having to necessarily have permission from...
Do you know what? That's a very good point. And it's something I've even considered myself. And, how do I just do it myself and get out there? But there's something about the struggle that's I'm already in. Right. I'm already in. I don't have to fight, I don't have to make a YouTube clip to come in. I'm already in. Yeah. And I just want to keep going within. Everyone else around me that I've seen, they didn't have to do a YouTube. This and that didn't have to do a YouTube. Why do I have to do YouTube? Obviously that is the future, naturally. But I grew up with all these compatriots are doing really well right now, or have had a taste of the pie, and you're like, well, they didn't have to do this. And I remember I met an agent once, and they were like, "You're working too hard," and that really turned it around for me. They were like, "What the hell? You're working too hard," because I'm always coming up with ideas, which is what everyone says they want. Always come up with ideas, throwing things out there. They're like, "Bro, you're working too hard, man. Not in a bad way, but you shouldn't be working this hard." Right. And that really changed things for me. And I'm like, oh, okay. And
how is that helpful?
It is and it isn't, because it's very frustrating. Right. I think that's the biggest thing. It can be frustrating. But the thing is, I really believe in what I have to offer. I really believe in my talent. I want to be, as solid a broadcaster as you see your Ben Shepherds, your Nick Knowles, your Dermot O'Learys, your Caroline Flack now, I guess, to a certain degree, your Philip Schofields, your Andy Peters. I would love to add a few more female TV presenters, your Tess Daly, your Claudia Winkleman. I'd love to be those people. They've had a very good career in the industry and work really well, and they're good at what they do. I don't see why I shouldn't do that. And they've experimented in different facets of the industry. They've done documentary, they've done factual, they've done entertainment. I don't want to be pigeonholed as the factual guy. I also don't want to be the guy that's just tossed around different BBC projects and they go, oh, it's not quite right. I want you to listen to me and go, look, how do we work with this guy? What are your interests? What are your passions? What do you like doing? And sorry, we can't do it because it's a bit too niche. Well, then how do we make it less niche? Okay. That's your job.
So here's a question, because I want to bring this into our listeners. In fact, I'll give you a couple of light ones because I do want to wrap up. What advice would you give yourself? Yeah. Knowing what you do know now, when you first started or prior to you beginning this journey?
Have my thing is have a clearer idea of where you want to be and where you want to end up. A lot of it might not plan out to be the way you want it, because plans always go out the window naturally. You have to be flexible, but also don't lose that vibrancy, that wide-eyed wonderment, that sense of adventure, that sense of, you know what, I'm just going to go and do it, see what they say. Don't let anything that sometimes your parents might have told you hold you back, because they've also grown up in a different generation and they face a lot of struggles. Although some of that stuff is still relevant and right now, but I'm still a fan of breaking doors down and holding people to account. Just being like, look, there's no black people in the office. Can we get some more, please?
Yeah.
And if they're like, we don't know how to, you're like, well, I'll help you. Like, you know, and that's one of the things I did on Blue Peter. Like, I got to my third year, I just felt completely out of sorts, man. I had a bit of an identity crisis on that show, because I was like, speaking like someone I don't know. Like, you know, you do that a little bit because the show's got this big heritage. And one day I just came out of the office, I was like, there's no one who looks like me in this office. Like, there's no one I can have chats with. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not that I expect black talk all the time, but it's like someone to relate to, you know, because everyone else is relating to each other. Everyone else is talking about their great weekends. Everyone else is, you know, it's like, I do have those weekends as well, but, you know, I'm also of a different culture. And I just said to my boss, I was like, can we get more black people in the office, please? You know, never be afraid to speak your mind, because there's a sense that when you're in, that you have to be grateful. Yes, I'm grateful I have an amazing job, but also, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And that's where having that plan comes to play. I think I kind of had a plan in my head. I always wanted to make documentaries on factual television and travel and stuff, which I actually got with Blue Peter. And then I was like, what's next? And I just saw that and thought that far ahead. And if I'm honest, a lot of other TV presenters, maybe at the time, were like already thinking 5-6 years down the line. And I'm a bit kind of happy-go-lucky kind of guy. I was like, oh, well, we'll see what happens. Let's go. Really have a plan of where you want to be and why you are coming to the industry, because that's what people want to hear. They want to hear you're hungry and you're ready to work and watch television, watch British TV, you know, and how would you change it?
Yeah.
That's what people want to know.
You do a lot of things. I know you've done like recently the swim dem crew.
Yeah.
So you're not averse to helping out.
Yeah.
Do you recall a time where you've asked specifically for help? Can you describe a time?
Oh man, I'm really bad at asking for help.
It's funny that, but do you like it if people are able to come to you for help?
Massive. Like, I don't mind at all. I'll always give advice. I'll always offer. But I'm really bad at asking for help because I've always been self-reliant. You know, and maybe that's detrimental to my lack of success in certain areas. But like, I'm just like, if you want to do it, just do it. I have asked for help in certain, for instance, this swimming thing. I knew I couldn't get it off the ground unless I had like a big endorser. But actually, I got a big endorser and I was like, I could have done this myself. You know, it's that YouTube thing we're talking about again. Like, that hustle is still within me, like, you know, and you should never lose that. Like, you know, at the end of the day, people can only say no. Like, I pitched an idea to The Guardian last week. The editor was like, it's too niche for us. I was like, well, how do we make it less niche? She was like, I don't think we can. I was like, well, thanks for your time. Brilliant. Next. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I need the editor of The Guardian to endorse that, to say, yeah, like, this is a really good article. So yeah, let's do it. You know, so definitely I'll ask for help, or ask help from a friend of mine who was working within The Guardian, going, who's the best person to talk to about this? Yeah, I mean, people will always help. I mean, it's no skin off their nose to give you an email address. You know, they'll only say no if they don't want you, or they don't care about what you're saying, or they just won't reply. But it's no skin off someone's nose to give you the contacts. You know, it's just part of the industry. It's just the way it works. So yeah, always ask for help though, but also believe in your own. But it's having that awareness of how good you are, how not good you are. Don't be afraid to understand your faults. If you're not good at something, you're not good at something. But be willing to learn. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah. Do you feel you're successful?
In everyone's eyes, I've done really well and I'm really successful. It depends on what you gauge success at. On a monetary level, I would gauge that success as I'm okay. On a career level, I still think I've got a long way to go before I am in my head where I think I am. But then in realistic level, I look at the things that I've accomplished. And honestly, these are the three ways that my mind works. Yeah. And it's the reality level that keeps me, I think I like, and I keep reminding myself that keeps me grounded, is that I've done some unbelievable things. I've met some unbelievable people. You know, I was the Blue Peter presenter at the time that was introducing presenters past and present to the Queen. I was the guy. You know, I've got a swimming world record. I've travelled to over 118 different cities around the world for free. You know, I've had dinner with the Bolivian ambassador for Britain, you know, like, because I work for the BBC, you know, like, you look at all these things and you're just like, all right. I'm all right, and I've been invited to the BAFTAs, all these incredible things, and you're just like, yeah, it's actually not that bad. It's not that bad. I've done all right.
Okay. And my final question, how would you like to be remembered?
I'd like to be remembered as one of the best broadcasters in British history. Someone who was warm, someone who was relatively real on television, and someone that people thought, you know what, he's really good at what he does, not because he's a black guy, but just because he's like actual quality. And that's what I've strived for. I've not necessarily perfection, but I strive for quality. And everything I've made or put out, television projects and stuff, they realise that I've put literally 100% of my energy and my time in it. And even within that respect, I still have time for the people that I care about and regular people, because I just don't ever want to remove myself from the real people that matter. Oh my God, I sound like a politician.
No, amazing. no. That was really quite a sweet soundbite. How can people find you on the web or anything?
Yeah, Twitter, Andy Akinwo.
How do you spell that?
ANDYAKINWO. And Instagram, Ayo Akinwolere, AYO AKINWOLERE. And yeah, I've got a Facebook page as well. Drop me a line on that thing.
Cool. So guys, if there's anything you want to listen, just give Andy a shout. He's an amazing guy. As you can clearly hear from this episode, it's been fascinating, and we most likely will do a round 2 and a follow-up.
Hey guys, we really appreciate you listening, and if you have any feedback, please leave it in the comment section below. Also, all the info about the guests, the links and the resources we speak about will be in the description below. And last but not least, please do get in touch if you can teach us how you do what it is you do, because after all, Blacticulate is all about empowering and upskilling the community. Thanks guys, you're the best. See you soon.